Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Breckland Planning for today. I'd like to first of all start with what we call our general housekeeping. With regards to fires and fire alarms, if the fire alarm goes off, we'd ask you to vacate the building by either of these two doors here, and then would congregate at the far end of the car park. There is a sign there, just follow the troops. If you happen to be in the lavatories, there is a door at the end of the corridor, or if you happen to be grabbing yourself a coffee, there is, of course, the door that you came in. Mobile phones and devices, could I ask you to either switch them off or at least put them on silent? If your phone does go off, it's a £10 fine to the chairman's charity. Now, that's not me as chairman of this committee, that's the chairman of the council. And we are lucky enough that he is also a substitute member on this committee, and he is with us today. So, Keith, would you like to tell us what your charity is for this year, please? With your microphone on, because we are live feeding.
Yeah. Excuse me, yeah, it's the Big C and the East Anglia Children's Hospice. Yeah.
Thank you. So there you go.
Switch your phones back on, please.
Switch. He would like you to keep your phones on so he can earn plenty of dosh for his charities. And he has various dues and functions throughout the year that he will be attempting to get as much as he can. So that was that item. Next item is procedure. As each item is called, I have a list of people who have contacted us to speak. And when your name's called, if you'd like to come and sit on the right-hand side, the officer will give the presentation, and then I will give you your allotted times for speaking. If you are, thank you, if you are doing your presentation and your time runs out, you will hear the bell. That means if you could just sum up. Sum up is end that sentence as briefly as possible. It does not mean that you can talk for another 15 minutes to get your point across. The lovely thing about being chairman of all these microphones is I have a major switch and I can shut you off. So you either talk very loudly or I will talk over you. Anyway, we'll try and give you your fair option of time. Last time is introductions. I'd like to introduce you to my team. On the side, on my left-hand side, I have Mike Horn, who is the solicitor to the council. On my right-hand side, my right-hand woman is the lovely Rebecca Collins. I made it sound like an assistant in a magic show then. On the right-hand side, we have our Richard Fisher, our tree and countryside officer. We have Barbara Greengrass, one of our planning officers, and Ed Small, who will be doing their presentations. And we have Chris Fitzgerald at the back, who is our usher. And we have, of course, Julie, who takes our minutes and makes sure that we all behave ourselves, well, as best she can. So with that, without further ado, we're going to carry on to our agenda. And our first item this morning, item 1, are the minutes. And it's to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 27th of August 2024. Would you confirm that I can agree those minutes? Thank you. That's agreed. Let me just sign those off. There we go. Thank you. Item 2, Julie, please. Apologies and substitutes.
Thank you, Chairman. I have apologies from Councillor Attewell, Councillor Annie Blackburn, Councillor Bowes and Councillor Harvey. And substitutes today for Councillor Attewell is Councillor Keith Gilbert, and Councillor Samantha Taylor is substitute for Councillor Bowes.
Oh, okay, thank you very much. Thanks, guys, for coming in and helping us out. Our next item, declarations of interest and representations received. We will take them as... Councillor Kybird.
I just declare interest in item 11, applications determined. Thank you.
I would still come to that anyway, but never mind. We'll take that early. As each item is raised, it's your opportunity then to declare your interests and representations which I would want one covered up because I'm sure you've all received some communication with regards to Watton and its flooding issues. I would hope you have and all read them. Okay, thank you. Item 4, Chairman's announcements. First of all, just to remind you that the 27th of November is the highways training at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, giving an update onto the highways. Apparently we're still going to drive on the left-hand side. No great changes, but we will see. December the 18th, we need 2 members for the chairman's panel, so can you please search your diaries and give me your availabilities. It's an opportunity now because unfortunately we've lost our Stuart Oakley is the chap who sorts out all the room, and he is leaving us to go and get a job at the dinosaur park of all places. They sort of really go well together, local council and dinosaurs apparently. But he's leaving. Unfortunately, he's at another part of the building at the moment doing his day-to-day job. But I would like to, on behalf of you all, just have it minuted that we thank him for everything he's done for us. It's one of those behind-the-scenes, unseen job. We just walk in the room, we sit down, and we accept that it was always been like this. But many of you know you'll come back in here, say, tomorrow, and it's a completely different room. All the tables are gone, the chairs are all set out. It's conference, it's presentation, it's whatever. Well, he's the guy who sorts all that out for you. And he clears up all your mess at the end of the day as well. And he makes sure that all the microphones are out and the water jugs are filled, etc., etc. So a job well done. And he's been with us quite a time. And I think he will actually be, and I mean it sincerely, quite missed. So on behalf of you all, I'd like to say thanks to Stuart. And my last item on Chairman's announcements, just to bring you up to date, it is 91 sleeps to Christmas. I know you've all been asking, so just we're nearer to the time now. 91 sleeps. Thank you. I knew you needed to know that. So item 5 on our agenda, request to defer applications. Do we have any at all? We don't. A shake of the head. Item 6, do you have any items of urgent business? You don't. Item 7, we have a local plan update. Unfortunately, Simon nor Mr. Darby can't be with us, so it's over to you then, please, Rebecca.
Thank you, Chairman. So I'll read this out and then take any questions away with me, and we can respond later, members, if you have any. So members will be aware that at yesterday's Cabinet meeting, it was agreed the Council is to pause the current local plan programme. The reasons for this decision are set out in the Cabinet report and are summarised as follows. Members will be aware that on the 30th of July, the government published a consultation version of the NPPF. Amongst other proposals, it detailed an increase in an annual housing requirement for the majority of local planning authorities in the country. Breckland rose from 661, the current requirement in the draft local plan, to 917, a 39% uplift, and any new number would be mandatory. Excuse me. As part of the NPPF consultation, a transition timetable was also proposed. This was based on the date the revised NPPF is published, likely to be sometime at the end of this year, and the effective plan being at the Regulation 19 stage within a month of the date of that publication. As members will be aware, the Council concluded the Reg 18 consultation on the 15th of July and we're working towards the Reg 19 consultation draft submission document to be presented to Cabinet in early 2025. If we did manage to publish the Regulation 19 document within a month of the revised NPPF being published, it would be challenging using the current figure. We would not be able to submit it for examination until it had been fully revised using the new, currently unconfirmed number within the revised NPPF. We would then have 18 months to do that. If we chose to pause, wait for confirmation of the new number and start with a new Regulation 18 process, that would need to be concluded by December 2026. The deadline for plans to be submitted under the current plan-making regime instead of the new process. Pausing work at this time represents the most sensible and cost-effective course of action and will avoid the confusion of publishing a Reg 19 plan for it to be immediately changed to reflect the new numbers. It will also prevent spending money and resources on evidence bases specific to the Regulation 19 documents such as viability. Inevitably, irrespective of which route we take, we will have to redo and refresh evidence bases as well as redo the Regulation 18 process. Officers will need to start the process of identifying sites with a significant uplift of numbers proposed under the current consultation document. Work will also continue on the 3 strategic sites, Barker's Farm Larling, Dereham South West and Robertson Barracks, to ensure that if these sites are achievable, what mitigation is required and what numbers can be achieved, whilst ensuring that the sites are well designed with the necessary infrastructure to support their development. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone wishing to, Councillor Gilbert, please?
Yeah, Chair, if it's all right saying you've got to build all these houses, what if no one wants to build them? What is the stick that you're going to get beaten with if nobody wants to actually come in and build the things?
Yeah, point well taken, but I don't think that will be a problem. I think, you know, this is a developer's dream, you know. I don't really want to go greatly into comment, but just to say that any new government would like to hit the ground running, but unfortunately the word running got missed off the statement when it was put forward. Many apologies to that, Councillor Clark. Would you wish to comment or? No? Keep your powder dry. Well done. No one wishing to say anything with regards to the statements you've just heard? No? Okay, thank you. We're moving swiftly on. Okay, sorry, just got to get all my paperwork in order. So, deferred applications, we're not taking any of those today. So item 9 is we've got TPO 2024 number 2 at Munford, and we have got speakers. If you'd like to come and sit on the right hand side, we've got Mr. and Mrs. Staines and Mr. and Mrs. Burns. If you'd like to come and sit here, please. Or you're elected to speak. Oh, you're all coming, yep, good. It works well, actually, because it balances the room a bit more now. We just need 2 or 3 of you to sit there and we've got it then. Okay, super. Over to you then, please, Richard.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning. Dive straight into it. A TPO was served on 2 groups of trees for 55. For 55, the Lammas in Munford, the area highlighted in red on your screen now. Again, showing the location plan and an overhead shot with the 2 lines of trees highlighted or encompassed in a red box there. The 2 groups consist of the first group G1, 9 poplar, 2 ash, and G2 is 6 poplar and 1 ash. Again, here shows the location as served in the TPO and the situation and the description of each group there. The objections are set out in the main body of the report. The objections consist of being too close to the properties, being a health and safety liability, and just being too big. As you can see, the trees form quite a large presence on the skyline. This is looking straight down towards number 55 in the centre of the shot there with the 2 groups, G1 on the left, G2 on the right. Again, looking east along the Lammas, you can see the groups across the top of the houses there. And this is looking further back. This is one road back from the Lammas, West Hall Road. Again, the trees are still highly visible across the tops of the houses. And I think the final shot shows this is from Church View. Munford Church is just behind my left shoulder and the trees are in the distance there. So you can see that the trees do have quite a big presence on the skyline. My view is that the objections put across do not warrant not confirming the order, and the proposal is to confirm the order. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Mr. and Mrs. Staines, would you like a minute and a half? A minute and a half. By all means.
Mr. Fisher says that the trees are an amenity.
We need your microphone on.
Mr. Fisher has said that the trees are an amenity to the village. That's not the point. Are they safe? and they're not. These are photographs of branches that have come down recently. One came down on the 10th of last week, another great big one like that. And the branches are spread over, my garden at the bottom is 66 feet wide. The branch canopy goes over half that distance, and the branches that go across are absolutely enormous. When these branches came down, they were hollow in the middle. There was a sheath of wood around the outside, and there was no support in the structure at all. It just fractured off. One other thing that I don't think you realise is there's a water main that goes right across my garden, which is subterranean. When I moved in, it was completely invisible. Now the roots of the trees have grown underneath. They've forced this main up, and that main is made from concrete, and concrete is not flexible. 3 trees have had to be taken down between my garden and the garden of number 55 because of beetle infestation. When the trees came down, they were absolutely rotten. My neighbour David Smith, who lives at number 53, had 4 trees blown down in a gale, and one of them just fell over on a peaceful summer night and just crashed down.
And these
They're
come
reaching
down.
the end of their lifespan. They're 55 years of age now. What's the point of putting a preservation order on them? It's not going to increase the safety. If you want to make these trees safe and keep them for the village, get the guy that owns them to spend some money and make them safe. Reduce the height, reduce the canopy, and they'll be a lot better off. I measured the trees on Saturday with a laser, and it was 154 feet high. That is far too high for a residential area. Really?
I do apologise. We're going to have to vacate the building. Yeah, could you go out by this door here, please? Could everyone out by this door? Thank you.
No, 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 I will never. No, 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 I'm not threatening it. Oh, I love a bit of fresh air.
Just because the meetings are short these days, Nigel, doesn't mean you have to extend them artificially with a...
We are suspending the meeting for some local folk dancers to come in as well.
Oh, that's all right then. Folk dancers are different.
And we're having a cooking classes as well towards the end of the meeting. Just to extend it.
Cookie and lunch. What's up, boy?
Yeah, I know. I haven't stopped anything.
I'm going to pass them up there.
Hmm?
Pass them up there.
Yeah. They'll put you in prison if you do.
Yeah. Well, it's just not polite not to just...
Okay, thank you very much.
This is on a clear, sunny day
That's fine.
when we were sitting in the garden.
Okay, thank you very much.
They'll put you in prison.
Julie, can you just pass them? Let the members go along there. See the train. First of all, just to communicate with anyone listening online, yeah, we had a fire alarm go off. We vacated the building. It was actually only a test. We have not been burnt up. We vacated the room in very good time, according to the officer, the fire control officer. Unfortunately, if this was a genuine fire, this tier of government would be fine. County Council were very slow in vacating the building, so they need to up their game a bit. I don't care what I say, so that's fine. I will just say one thing. I stopped in a hotel once, and at 2 o'clock in the morning, it was a February, it's very cold. The fire alarm went off. We vacated the building into the rear yard. We all stood there in our pajamas or dressing gowns, whatever. I think I had a pair of jogging bottoms and a zip-up top. And the manager came out and said, "Oh, I think that's just a fault with the alarm, so if you'd like to all return." And that was all he said. And I got told off by my wife because I suddenly stepped forward and said, "I'm sorry, no one returns to this building until you send your members of staff along each floor to check that there is no smoke evident, and also to touch all the doors, because if there is a fire within a room, you will definitely feel the heat of that door." He looked a little bit disgruntled, but no one moved. No one went to go back in the building. So I was quite pleased that what I had taken control of by being a bit in charge type thing, which my wife told me off. "It's not your hotel. You should let them get on with it." I said, "Yeah, but I don't want to be burnt down. Well, if I go back to bed, I should probably go straight off to sleep and be burnt to a crisp." I said, "I don't want that, and I don't want it for anyone else." So in future, I would all say to all of you, if an alarm goes off, please treat it as genuine. No one's to know it's not. Now, to pick up where we were with our tree TPO in Munford, you had gone over your time, but I'd like you to have another minute to recap if you feel that there's anything else you need to add, and then I will give the other couple 2 minutes as well instead. All right, for you vacating my building nice and promptly. So if you'd like another minute just to recap, would you like?
Yeah, I'd love it.
All right, if you'd like to carry on then.
Number 55, when I first moved into Munford in 2012.
11.
11, sorry. Number 55 was a rental property. We never knew who owned the property, we never met her, but we dealt with an agent. And whenever there was a problem with the trees, when the canopy was getting rather too big or branches were coming down, the agent would come in, he'd have a look, he'd get someone to just say what needed to be done. Trees surgeons would come in, they'd pollard the trees, reduce the height, problem solved. This hasn't happened. We've asked the new guy who's moved in 2022, but he doesn't want to spend any money at all on maintaining those trees. We said, okay, we'll do it. We'll pay for it. But the problem was, it poured with rain from November last year and it was until July this year before our garden dried out and we can get any machinery in, because we live on the floodplain of the Wizzy. And the other problem that we have is we've got to try and arrange.
I do apologise.
I'm really glad I brought her.
You can have a minute of our time because I only want 1 minute.
Right, there we go. Carry on, sir.
Right, I've forgotten what I was going to say now.
You're on the floodplain.
Yeah. And you can't.
Yeah, that's
you
right.
can't
Yeah, okay.
do anything to the trees when they're in leaf because they're too heavy, and the birds are nesting. And we like nature. We've got hedgehogs in the garden. We've got ducks, geese, and everything. The tree that borders on the river, the ash, has got a fissure down it. We're told that they're in good order. They're not. It's got a fissure down it about that long. It's leaning over the river. The bank's undermined. That is going to go any time now. That won't affect us, but it could affect the fishermen or anybody on the river.
And you can't get it out because there's no access for heavy machinery.
And there's
so it better be taken down now by a tree surgeon before it falls.
And number 55 has no access. The only houses that have access is number 53 and 53A. We have, but we're quite away, the way the houses are away. Mr. Smith, Ian Smith and David Smith would deny access if it was proved that the trees are dangerous and they're not going to do anything about it.
Okay, thank you. If you'd like to carry on, please. Could you just turn your microphone on?
Yeah. Oh, no. How do you do it?
Hiya, my name's Patrick Burns. We're at number 63, which is less than 70 feet from the nearest tree, 150 feet high, at G2. Mr. Fisher says that no information has been provided to suggest that there's any defects in the trees. I would like to request a survey to establish the health of the trees. That's all.
An independent survey.
Okay, thank you very much. Would you like to respond to those comments, please?
Certainly. In terms of the branches falling off the trees, unfortunately, that's part and parcel of living next door to mature trees. It's not just.
Thank you, thank you.
It's not just poplar trees, it's all species of trees that drop branches. It's part of the maturing process of tree species. In terms of works to be done to the trees, that would be down to the homeowner. And in discussions with the homeowner and the tree owner, I'm confident that he would like to see the trees retained and kept. And he has mentioned to me in the past that they would become part of some sort of cyclical survey routine. And also, in terms of works, just because there's a TPO on the tree doesn't mean that no works are considered at all. It's just an extra step, a paper admin process for an application and myself to come out and assess the works on the trees.
Okay, it's going to be open to questions to members. All I was going to say, Richard, is with light of the fact that the various neighbours have said that there's a fissure, which I suppose is another word for a crack. Yeah, a crack. Okay, thank you. I mean, is there any mileage in contacting the owner or for organising a site visit from yourself?
Oh, I can certainly contact the owner and have a look, but it wasn't part of the decision process when making the TPO.
Okay. Okay, that's highlighted that then. All we're being asked is to confirm the TPO. Councillor Wilkinson? Can't get it
on. Okay. Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I probably know the answer, but Richard and the solicitor might be able to back us up on this. If we was minded to confirm the order of the TPO, can we condition that there is a survey done and all works necessary? What a tree surgeon, so we can't? No. Right, thank you.
Councillor Bambridge?
I was just going to ask, there's a mixture of poplar and ash, you say. I think the poplar were mostly planted as a cash crop, weren't they? So I think we should regard them in that way. The ash trees, are they healthy? Do they have ash dieback? Because that would be important.
I didn't see any ash dieback present and nothing to cause any alarm at all, no.
Thank you. Councillor Clark?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'm just noting under 5.1 about the initial and subsequent visits by the tree officer, responding to, the concerns that residents have raised. And I'm familiar with the way these assessments are done. Perhaps I can ask the officer that if the tree officer was of the opinion that work needed to be done, or if the tree was unsafe, that assessment would also be included in there. The other point, so come back to that, the other point I would make is that a TPO, because it says protection, sometimes people don't realise that doesn't prevent work being done on the tree to make it safer, to prune it, to preserve it. It just means that you have to have a form of consultation before you do anything to it. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Kybird?
Yes, could the officer tell us what was the background for putting this in place in the first instance? What was the trigger? Yeah.
Certainly, I was contacted by the tree owner with concerns regarding pruning from neighbouring properties. I also met with some of the neighbours and spoke about their concerns regarding the trees. And on balance, I thought that, to serve a tree TPO would protect the trees further rather than have them inappropriately pruned at some point into the future.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Wilkinson?
Can I ask Richard, when the gentleman said the branches was falling down because they're rotten and hollowed out, if the tree's healthy, what causes the branches to degrade like that and then fall off if the tree is healthy? Because I've got trees in my garden and I've got similar trees near me as well, and they look healthy, but I can't see any damaged branches or rotten branches. So I just wonder why that's happening here.
As I mentioned earlier, dropping branches on mature trees is part and parcel of their growth cycle. It happens periodically. It doesn't happen more to one species than another. There is a phenomenon known as summer branch drop, where branches just do detach from trees, and that's to do with water uptake, desiccation of tissues within the branches themselves. So there's no real rhyme or reason, but it is part and parcel of owning and living next door to mature trees.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to decide on this one. That's TPO 2024 number 2 at 55 The Llamas, Munford. Your officer's recommendation from our tree and countryside officer is that we confirm the order. Could I have a show of hands to confirm the order, please? That's unanimous. Thank you. This order is confirmed. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your time. And I do apologise once again for the fire thing, but there you had a bit of exercise mid-morning. Okay, thank you. If you'd like to clear the chairs, we're now moving on to item 2 on our agenda, 10A, part of our agenda for today, which is a 3PL 2023-1218 in full format at North Pickenham. Speakers, I have Jason Parker to speak. Thank you. To speak. And I have also got Steve Lucas, who is to answer questions, Chris Gulliver and James Gulliver, who are the applicants for questions only. And we've got a written statement to be read out by Councillor Fabian Eagle. Who's missing? Chris is not here. Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
He wasn't caught up in the fire.
Yeah, didn't get caught up in the fire. Yeah. The opportunity to get rid of him, chuck him in the fire. Okay, over to you then, please, Barbara.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, everyone. So this application has been brought to committee because it's a major, and you can see here permission sought for 24 industrial units covering part of the site to be used for use class B8 and EG, and change of use for the remainder of the site to be used for industrial purposes and use class B8 storage. So this is the extent of the site. The site is here. You can see to the east is the village of North Pickenham. And you can see adjoining the site to the kind of north is the old North Pickenham airfield, where there are chicken sheds and also the wind turbines. That's just the close-up of the site. You can see the roads on the site have already been implemented from the previous planning permission. That's the previous planning permission, which I'll be talking about, that has been implemented. You can see the roads there, which have been implemented, and the buildings, which have consent. And this is now the proposed scheme. You can see it utilises the existing road network with the buildings alongside. I'll just take you through the scheme. Just to mention about the site, you can see it is open with trees along the northern and western boundary with the road network, and also there are foul and surface water drainage systems in place. So these are the buildings, blocks 1 to 6. They are 9 metres in height. Blocks 7 to 10. Again, you'll see they're all very similar in design and appearance. The bin and cycle storage. Some typical floor plans. You'll see that they follow a similar pattern with an office space, utilities, and then the workshop storage space. And again, here's some pictures of the site. These are looking north and west. That's the existing site entrance, looking west and north. This is standing in front of the site, looking east and then looking south. Looking southwest, you can see that building, that frame, the steel frame, was part of the original permission which was built. And you can see to the rear of that the hay bales used on the site next door for biofuel. So you can see here the 24 units. I've already said how they're to be used. And then the area to the east of the plan here, that's the open area, which is to be used for industrial and B8 use. And the units you can see are arranged in 5 separate blocks to allow flexibility for tenants. So looking at the principle of the development of this site for industrial purposes has been established already due to the historic planning permissions being implemented. And that's set out in detail in my report. And you've seen also in the picture the frame that's been erected in line with the existing planning permission. So it's considered that there is a legitimate fallback position to allow this site to be used for industrial purposes. Turning now to the development plan policies, policy GEN01 of the local plan does seek to enable development that is sustainable development. The proposals are considered to facilitate developable land to provide employment, support the wider rural economy, and help rural communities adapt and grow proportionately, making the best and most efficient use of previously developed land and buildings. Furthermore, the proposals will mitigate and adapt to climate change. So it's considered, even though the site is not within the most sustainable location, as identified within the settlement hierarchy of the local plan does recognise the importance of using previously developed land and directing jobs and growth in rural areas, helping to achieve the right balance throughout the district. In terms of policy EC04 of the local plan, it is also considered to comply with this policy, taking into account the applicant's submitted research. It's also considered that based on that, it's considered that there's no other suitable sites available on identified or allocated employment sites for this particular development. The supporting text of the policy also supports this development. It states the demonstration of sustainability advantages should include evidence of reduced need to travel, reuse of previously developed land or existing buildings, and enhanced opportunities for rural communities to access employment in their locality. In order to ensure that business development in rural areas is sustainable, proposals will be expected to make best use of previously developed sites or the replacement of existing buildings. The scheme is also, of course, you can see in my report, supported by the MPPF. So looking at the design and landscape impacts, I did show you the photographs, and you will see that the site is quite well enclosed. The units mirror the previously approved 24 units that have consent. Views of the site are not prominent, and the mature trees exist along the northern boundary. The applicant has advised that additional planting is proposed, especially along the eastern boundary, which is open and within the site. A landscape and visual impact appraisal was submitted, and it's considered that the development has made a sensitive response to the landscape and will not be visually intrusive in this countryside location. Conditions will, of course, be added to require the landscaping scheme and also to ensure that lighting is sensitive to the dark skies and ecology. Looking at residential amenity, the nearest residential property is some 200 metres away. This distance ensures that the amenity of those neighbours would not be impinged upon by this development. And in any event, the uses proposed and the size and scale are considered not to give rise to any adverse impacts. Environmental health are also satisfied and have recommended conditions which have been appended to the report. So looking now at access, highways and parking, you can see there's ample parking for the scheme, 124 spaces. So the applicant proposed some off-site highway works, which highways are happy with. Basically, it shows the existing access to be used, and the Highways Authority requested 3 passing bays leading south from the site, for which the precise locations and details can be secured by granting condition, as these will be within the existing highway verge. The provision of the passing places under this scheme would therefore improve the existing highway safety levels along Hillborough Road, and Highways Authority have not objected on that basis. Drainage and flood risk. A flood risk assessment accompanies the application, and that is satisfactory to the Environment Agency and Anglian Water. Environment Agency have recommended some conditions which have been appended. Ecology and habitat sites. The application was accompanied by an ecology report and a habitats regulation assessment. These have been reviewed by Natural England and the Council's ecologist, and both are satisfied in this regard. The existing trees on the site are to remain, and so therefore there's no objections on tree grounds. And the Contaminated Land Officer is also satisfied with the Phase 1 contaminated report which was submitted, and are satisfied subject to additional conditions. Therefore, members, I'm recommending that the proposal accords with the development plan as a whole, and weight has been given to other material considerations, including the existing planning permission on the site, and therefore I'm recommending approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Okay, I've got Jason Parker, 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you very much. I'm Jason Parker, the planning agent for the application. I have one of the applicants with me as well, James. He's here for questions. And I also have the architects as well. As you heard, there's an extant permission on the sites for a similar development. The principle of development is already agreed as such, and that's in paragraph 1.1 of the officer's report. In reality, this is an amended scheme to the existing approved proposal. The amended scheme is better than the existing permission as it provides units of more flexible sizes and to more modern standards, and the site is a much better design with more controls in place, such as more planning conditions being imposed. As you heard, there are highways improvements as well, which includes the 3 passing places. And there's also landscape and ecology enhancements as well. You will see from the officer's report, there's no statutory consultee objections. Councillor Fabian Eagle, he is a local county and district councillor. He's confirmed support for this application. And quite surprisingly, there's no objections to this proposal from any residents. A lot of community engagement work was undertaken with parish council and locals from the applicant and ourselves. The applicants purchased this site just prior to this amended application being prepared. They're keen to get on with the development, which Breckland and the local areas waited a long time to see. This site will finally provide for business space and employment opportunities, and it's going to finally come forward. The site will provide a considerable benefit to the area. We've worked closely with the planning department and consultees and would like to thank them all for the hard work and in reaching the conclusion for recommendation of approval. And we are hopeful that the committee will support this recommendation. If you've got any questions, we're all here to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you. Open to questions from members. I've got Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chairman. This is a question for the officer. I note under 4.4, there's requests there about the passing bays, I know which the applicants referred to, and the Highways Authority in the officer's report. It then also says conditions are recommended which will be appended in the event planning permission is granted. Now, it refers obviously to the passing bays and the benefit of having those. Now, it may be that I've missed something, but and the gramping condition may be outside the actual conditions listed at the end of the report. But I can't see that. I may have missed it. I can't see that referred to in the conditions at the back of the report. I accept that highways are not objecting to the proposal. I do actually support the application fully on economic grounds, by the way. Thank you.
Yes, Councillor. In answer to your question, condition 17 does cover that because it says detailed drawings for the off-site highway improvement works need to be submitted and approved in writing by the planning authority before works above slab levels.
Councillor Bambridge, please.
It's working. This is stage 1, I gather, of a multi-stage development of the site, which I can quite understand. I did note that from the photographs we were shown, it looks like a very wet site, and the LLFA didn't apparently visit the site. They just did some sort of desktop assessment. And I'm just wondering how wet the site actually is.
Yeah, I mean, the site is on the top of a hill, and it has very well established drains already in place from the development that was conducted probably 25 years ago. So, yeah, the site may have been wet when the photos were taken because it may have been raining, but in general, it's quite a dry site, I would say.
Yeah, and with this application, a detailed drainage report was submitted as well. So we're not just relying on what may have been built 25 years ago. There's a very detailed drainage assessment.
That's fine. I was just wondering whether this was the part of Norfolk where water runs up the hill to gather.
No. Before I take any more questions, I've actually still got Councillor Eagle's statement to be read out. Thank you, Rebecca.
I fully support this application as a lifelong North Pickenham resident. I can remember when the roads and drainage were installed around 30 years ago. Since then, due to the collapse of the business that originally started this work and a succession of new owners, it has not progressed until now, apart from becoming an area for fly tipping and antisocial behaviour. The applicant is no longer wishing the site to be used for heavy industrial use and has actively engaged with the local community. This is our opportunity to reduce a blight on one of our villages and provide much needed commercial units to boost our local economy. Let's not wait another 30 years for such an opportunity. Thank you.
Okay, any further questions, Councillor Plummer?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've known this site for about 40 years, and every time we come to this position, we're excited that that's going to be developed. So I'm fully supportive of this. It doesn't flood, I'm sure Councillor Bambridge, because it is on a hill, and that's had a very good drainage system put in the previous time, so that's fine. Okay. There used to be a haulage company there that used to have a hangar there, so that road is used to having Arctic lorries up and down it. Doesn't now because the hangar burned down and that's not used for haulage anymore. So under highways, I can't see a problem at all. So I'd like to support this and think this is time that we had another good industrial unit put there. And if you're worried about it being in the countryside, you just have to think of Shibden industrial area, which is in the middle of the countryside, Hethel, which is in the middle of the countryside. So I can't see any problem. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. It's nice to know my members get excited about industrial estates. Any further questions? I just want to ask, obviously the length of the units, if someone rents, say, 2 neighbouring units and need to, oh, the architect's twitching, and needs to make 2 into 1, for instance, does it affect integral structural strengthening?
All the units have been designed with flexibility in mind, so they can be 1 unit or 3 units or 2 units depending on the incoming tenants. We have a range of different options for the front as well, so you might, an incoming tenant may want a vehicle access door, they may want more offices, so therefore more fenestration. So yes, fully flexible.
That's good to know. We've got a very flexible site coming online, I hope. Okay, that's enough for that. So I'm putting it to members that 3PL 2023-1218F at North Pickenham. Your officer recommendation is one of approval. Can I have a show of hands, please? Unanimous. That's approved. Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, moving swiftly on, we now go to Watton, 3PL 2023-1149, again in full format. And I've got Phil Cohen, who's the agent. If you'd like to come and sit on the right-hand side, please, sir. We just plug Ed into the electric chair and he'll be away.
Okay, good morning everyone. So just as an FYI, we have received late representations from the Watton Flood Action Group, and these will be discussed and addressed within the drainage section of this presentation. So this application seeks the erection of 2 detached dwellings referred to as Plot 1, which is I'll show you in a bit where it is. So Plot 1 and Plot 2, as well as the erection of a garage and carport to serve the existing dwelling of 51 Thetford Road, Watton. And the application has been presented at Planning Committee following a calling request, and the planning agent being the District Councillor. So this is a location plan. So the application site, have you got the pointer? Yes, thank you. Yeah. So the application site is at 51 Thetford Road, which consists of a detached 2-storey period dwelling with ancillary amenity land surrounding it, so like up here in the corner as well. The site is immediately adjacent to and surrounded by single-storey dwellings to the north off Roman Drive, down here, and to the south as well. The existing dwelling will be retained as part of the proposal, and the land will be developed. The land to be developed is existing ancillary amenity land. So the site in relation to the site boundary, as you can see here, falls within a defined settlement boundary of Watton, so therefore, which is the principle of development for residential development is considered acceptable within the settlement boundary of market towns, having in regard to policies Geno 1, Geno 3 and Geno 5 a local plan. So the site and wider context, so the surrounding pattern of development is characterised by irregular built forms ranging from different time periods, with 1.5-storey chalet bungalows on Cannon Close up here, single-storey bungalows on Roman Drive to the northeast, and a mix of detached 2-storey dwellings and single-storey bungalows which go along Thetford Road to the southwest. So here is a proposed site plan. So we consider that the siting of these two dwellings of the scale, orientation and built spread is consistent and responsive to the pattern of development within the surrounding area, and regard must also be given to the fact there's been previous consents on the site for up to 3 dwellings. However, we feel that this scheme is a better optimisation of the land and the density of the existing site. In addition, the inclusion of these 2 additional dwellings not considered to impede upon the private amenity of 51 Thetford Road. As one would read, the existing dwelling in connection with the 2 that are proposed through the access road. The overall scheme would provide for 3 dwellings of equal plot sizes, which are considered spacious for the locality, whilst the dwellings along the eastern side of Thetford Road have open frontages. Down there, you can't really see it from this plan. The siting of a proposed carport is in front of 51 Thetford Road. However, it is within the same built line of the neighbouring dwellings, and due to its northward facing orientation and the siting to the southwest of the dwelling, its visual prominence is not considered harmful, and it would not detract from this pattern of development, and also it's considered well set back from the road as well. The carport will also be softened by existing landscaping features on the western boundary of the site. So these are the proposed elevations and floor plans for plot 1. So plot 1 is a 2-storey 4-bedroom dwelling with an east-facing 2-storey front gable projection and a west-facing recessed 2-storey front gable projection with an attached garage at ground floor level, which also on the western elevation is a hip roof of this particular projection. So the proposed palette of materials are for the walls a mix of larch and chestnut cladding, white render and red brick, and for the roof, sort of solar tile roofing system including clay roof tiles, and aluminium grey windows and triple glazed grey doors. So plot 1 in particular was originally revised from a single-storey bungalow to a 2-storey dwelling with an internal garage at ground floor level, and these revisions are considered to be acceptable having regard to Como 1 and Geno 2 of the local plan. So just to add, obviously these bedrooms here as well, like there's 4 bedrooms with the primary bedroom located in this corner up here. So plot 2, it's a 2-storey 4-bedroom dwelling comprising of a 2-storey front gable projection and a single-storey flat roof rear extension on the southern elevation here. So there is also a single-storey detached double bay garage to the northwest of the dwelling, and the proposed pallet materials are the same for plot 1 as they are for plot 2. So we consider the design to be consistent in terms of fenestration across the whole scheme, and the appearance and built forms of the proposed dwellings are now considered to be acceptable, and reduction of the overall footprint in particular for plot 1 allows for them to integrate appropriately into their own individual plots and optimise the density of the development, which is considered justified for locality. So we regard the proposed design to be acceptable, having regard to Gen 01 and Comment 2 of the local plan, as well as the Breckland design guide. So in terms of surface water drainage proposals, the site itself is at low risk from rivers, flooding, and very low risk of surface water. However, there are parts of the site, mainly this sort of corner here, where the access road is, where there are low to medium surface water flood risk areas on the site. However, we must give regard to the dwellings being designed away from the areas of flooding, which is in accordance with national and local policy and guidance, specifically in terms of the sequential approach to flooding. So with respect to surface water drainage implications, there is a detailed drainage design, as you can see here, sort of like the flows through the permeable paving into attenuation, the crate, which will then be discharged into the local sewers, the surface water sewage network. And having discussed this with local drainage consultants, we consider that an acceptable drainage strategy has been secured for a development proposal of this scale and nature. So as detailed within, you may have seen already, we had a representation on Friday from the Flood Action Group, who are also endorsed by the Watton Town Council. So in response to these comments, it's important to note that the application site is in a flood zone 1, so again, low fluvial flood risk. And whilst there are medium areas of surface water flood risk on the site, again, to reiterate, the proposed location of the dwellings are located outside of these areas. And these are obviously to discuss further in the officer report. With respect to points 1 to 3, which discuss the strategic flood risk assessment, officers have regard to the latest flood risk maps from the EA when determining the application, and the latest SFRA has not been finalised and will be published when appropriate, so it's not material consideration at this stage. With respect to point 4, the LFA were consulted and did not provide further comments. However, officers sought further advice, and the outcome of this is detailed within the main report and supplementary report. With respect to point 5, we do not consider that this is relevant to the proposed scheme to collect and attenuate rainfall, which discharges to existing surface water sewer managed by Anglian Water, as opposed to the ditch reference. In terms of point 6, they highlight that existing concerns on other sites, which are to the north and east of the site, but obviously we have to give regard that in all cases, each site is assessed on their own individual merits. Ultimately, they have to mitigate against the impacts of development proposed. Ultimately, this site has to mitigate against the impacts of development proposed, rather than solving all existing problems around the surrounding areas. The fact that they have provided a detailed surface water drainage strategy, which details with rainfall and surface water runoff, is considered to be acceptable in this sense. So we note the concerns raised in points 7 to 10, which relate to foul water. It's important to note that these are existing issues with the existing network in the area, and these are matters that Anglian Water to resolve separately, which cannot be resolved under this application. So Anglian Water are not consulted on applications of this size. Nevertheless, in this case, given the proposals only for 2 additional dwellings, the number of dwellings proposed are not considered to compromise the existing foul network. It's also important to emphasise that the applicants engaged with Anglian Water during the pre-application stage, which highlighted wider capacity issues with the Watton Recycling Centre, and as noted within their response in the pre-application response in the flood risk assessment, Anglian Water will take the necessary steps to ensure that there is adequate treatment capacity. With respect to point 11, concerns have been raised by the swell as an exceedance route. However, this isn't considered to be an exceedance route, but was a drainage feature designed to accommodate exceedance storage. In terms of exceedance flows, the exceedance will flow along the drive through the permeable paving, and which is then collected at a series of points along the drive and are then discharged into the attenuation crates which in turn are then pushed into the surface water net sewer. And we also consider that points 13 to 15 are not related to drainage and will be discussed elsewhere in the presentation. So therefore, for the reasons set out in the officer report and the supplementary report, subject to the proposal update and surface water drainage strategy for an amended site plan to reflect the current layout of development, we consider that the proposal is acceptable in regard to minimising risks of flooding, having regard to section 14 of the MPPF and policy MVO 9 of the Breckland local plan. So here are some site photos. So this is the existing driveway, and as I mentioned earlier, this will be upgraded with permeable paving to allow for the water runoff to go into the attenuation crates up here. And here is the access, which is existing access of plot 51. So highways considered that the access arrangements for the first 10 metres of the surface road should achieve a minimum width of 4.8 metres for the first 10 metres, and that the visibility displays measuring 2.4 by 59 metres, in addition to a communal size turn-in head area, would be considered acceptable, subject to precise details being secured. Following on, further highways comments have been received following the completion of this officer report. However, and they have subsequently recommended further conditions which have not obviously been covered in the original officer report, and these are obviously discussed in the supplementary report. But also, ultimately, we considered that the cumulative impact of only 2 additional dwellings would not be to the detriment of highway safety, and subject to these conditions, we consider the proposal to be acceptable in highways terms. So again, this is an existing dwelling, and the carport will be located roughly over here. So this is the sort of the area around plot 1. So you can, this is probably a better picture here. So it's discussed at length more so in the officer report, but you can see here's a low-lying fence to the neighbouring property on the eastern boundary of plot 1. And to further mitigate and safeguard the existing neighbourhood amenity, we've recommended that a soft landscaping scheme is secured as part of the development proposal, and concerns are noted with regards to the points made in Flood Action Group's representation. However, we consider that the existing landscaping up here will largely screen off their proposed dwelling from that neighbouring dwelling. But again, further details of the landscaping proposals can be secured by way of condition. So again, this is sort of looking up from the top corner of the site on the northeast. So again, you can see plot 1 here, very spacious plot. And this is where plot 2 will be located, sort of, yeah, towards the back of the dwelling, sort of over here. And again, these are some existing, it's important to note there are some existing landscaping features, and as well as an existing pond on the southeastern corner of the site. However, the applicants have carried out ecology surveys and a tree report, and these are considered acceptable by consultees and have therefore recommended conditions. So therefore, in terms of the overall planning balance of the scheme, the proposal is considered to be in accordance with relevant development plan policies, the National Planning Policy Framework, and a Breckland Design Guide, and therefore the officer recommendations one of approval, subject to conditions. Thank you.
Thanks, Ed. Okay, Mr. Cowan, please. Are you
I'm just here really to answer any questions, Chairman,
right,
in light of the report, and we have had considerable discussions with officers to get to this point already.
Fantastic. It's open to questions from members at all. Councillor Gilbert.
It's not a question, but I think the work which Liz Witcher has done has been absolutely tremendous. And first, I'm glad to see that we've now come down to 2 dwellings, because I think squeezing any more in there was problematical. But I am a member of the Flood Action Group, but I'm not the one who does the work. Liz does so much, and she's self-taught really into flood alleviation. And I think the work which she has done and the reports she has put in has helped to make this hopefully a successful scheme. I see Phil nodding there, and I don't know whether you have anything to say, Phil, on the work that Liz has done and to come to an arrangement, because I think without her comments and her input, we would not have a suitable scheme.
I can't but agree with that statement, actually, Keith. On many fronts. When we took on this particular project, it already had outline consent for up to 3 dwellings, and that was the first thing we said needed to change. And that concurred with officers' views as well. So it is a site that can only take two additional dwellings. There's no question about it, given all those constraints you've said. And engaging with Plandersil as the engineers designing the flood risk scheme and the drainage scheme, it became quite apparent there's only 2 particular locations you can put a couple of houses on here and maintain a safe and appropriate solution. As you can see from the drawings, the drainage drawing that you saw is the previous scheme that we put forward with two dwellings still, but effectively the solution is the same solution, and that's why Ed has identified that there will need to be an amended scheme as part of the conditions for the drainage. But in essence, the 2 dwellings, same amount of drains, same attenuation, same permeable road surface and everything else. Because whilst this is in flood zone 1, we just want to make sure we don't cause problems elsewhere, which is really where Liz kicks in, because she's done a huge amount of work, not just in Watton, but in the surrounding villages as well.
Yes, thank you. I think I could ask you, Keith, to pass on the committee's compliments to Liz when you see her next time.
Will do, and as you know, I believe she's in Scotland on holiday.
Well, don't go up there to tell her that. Just
No,
when you
I'll
next
wait
see
till
her.
she gets back.
Okay, fine. Any further questions before I take the... Okay, thank you very much. So with that item, which is 3PL 2023-1149, in full format on Watton 51 Thetford Road, your officer's recommendation is one of approval. Could I have a show of hands, please? Yeah, having a unanimous day today. Thank you very much, Mr. Cowan. Thank you. Okay, next item is item 11, which is applications determined by the Deputy Chief Executive. Those are there for your information. Item 12 is the appeals summary, again there for your information. And with that, I close this meeting.